Welcome everybody from the Sparx Systems YouTube audience. It's great to have you here today. My name's Scott and I'm joined by Stephen. Welcome Stephen, how are you today?
Very well, thank you, Scott.
Well, that's good to hear. I understand that we're going to be having a look at some Enterprise Architect preferences today.
That's right, Scott. A very useful piece of functionality within the tool to kind of personalize the application, various aspects of the application. And, these things apply to you as the user. Let's do what we always do, not critical at this particular topic that we're covering, but as always, let's change our perspective to focus in on what we're interested in today. So I've been doing some database engineering work earlier this morning, but I'm going to change to the UML perspective and allow the tool to focus me in on that particular discipline. And you can see now that the builder page has changed and it's got all things to do with the UML there. Let's go to our home page here. And let's look at the preference window. So Enterprise Architect is a ribbon-based application. And you can see we've got a number of ribbons across here, the start design, the layout ribbons. We're going to be on the start ribbon, and we have various panels there, the all windows panel, the explore panel, and the appearance panel. So in an earlier video, we looked at visual style and we had a quick look at view and full screen mode, but we're going to look at this item here, preferences. So we'll drop that down, and there are a few options here that we're not going to look at, but you can use large toolbar icons. You can use toolbars if you want, and other options there. We're going to focus on the preferences window. That pops up there, and you can see here that we've got a window with a little tree view on the left-hand side. That's our way to navigate. So when we navigate through there, we can bring up various panels that have specific types of features on them and options. So the general one there, we've got the clipboard format. What type of format do we want it to be? A meta file, so like a scalable file. We've got a default project. I can select that. A project directory. I haven't got those set. And we've got a few browser options here. Confirm deletes. I always like to have that on. I don't like to be deleting something and not being warned about it. Free sorting, so being able to change things that are in their default alphabetical order. Show stereotypes and sort diagrams above packages. So a few options you can play with there. Some people like to see the stereotypes, which is kind of like a classification in the browser, particularly if you're working on applications that have got a lot of your own or different stereotypes in them. But let's have a look at the Windows behavior, Scott. So notice that the panel's divided up into some sections. We've got main window, tree controls, toolbars, auto hide, collaboration, and other. So always open maximize. So that's something that users don't really realize sometimes. That's why Enterprise Architect opens that way. That's a default. We've got the hide diagram caption bar. Now, what exactly is this, Scott? Let's open up a diagram. We'll go out of this for a minute. Let's open up a diagram using our navigation things here. And let's look at our canonical class diagram there. Now let's go back into the preferences window there and look at that. So if you look at here, we've got the hide the diagram caption. So at the moment, the diagram caption is hidden. Let's turn that back on again. And if you look carefully up at just above the diagram, the top of the diagram there, watch what happens. You can see that a little very narrow band pops up, and it's got metadata about the diagram that's open, what type of diagram it is. It's a class model, and then the name of the diagram. So that's a useful thing.
What do those little double arrows on either side do? In that caption bar.
Oh, in the caption bar. So yeah, I'll show you those, Scott. It's an interesting thing. This one over here is, we call them chevrons. That brings back the toolbar. So if I just want to hide the toolbar quickly, and this other one here gives me like an inline specification view. So if I do that, suddenly I've got this view. And we have covered this on a previous video, but well picked up, very useful there, and useful to see which elements perhaps don't have anything there. You can see the parking space. Immediately I can tell that doesn't have any notes on it, and so that
needs work.
it needs some work, and the card reader there needs a little bit of work. But Scott, everything's in flux when you're working with models. That's the nature of it. You know, you have milestones and you work towards those milestones. But let's return our attention to that to the preferences window. But very interesting thing to pick up there. Lots of little featured in the tool. We're looking at Windows behavior. The status bar is another one. Hide the status bar. Now down in the bottom, right at the bottom of the application, you'll see a bar that's bringing up. At the moment it's saying class diagram created, modified, the zoom percentage and the size of the diagram. If I turn that off, that goes away. So it's just a personal thing. Maybe you want that on there. Animate automate windows. Show auto hidden windows on mouse over. I will just show you this one, Scott. I think it's kind of a fun feature of the application. Automate auto hide windows. Let's turn it off for the moment, and then we have the ability to hide windows. So if I look at this little pin here, I can pin that back there, and it just goes back in. Now, if I go back to my preferences and my Windows behavior, I'm going to say animate auto hide there. Let's close that and see what happens now when I put that back. You can see that it's got a sliding kind of thing about it, yeah? So let's pin that back again because we needed that one pinned. And so let's return to the preferences window. I want to repeat this. I said it earlier, but I want to repeat it. The preferences are all about you as the user. So when I'm setting these things, I'm not setting them for Jenny or for Casper or for Roger. I'm setting them for myself. There are a couple of places in here where they may apply more globally or to a team, but generally they're applying to each user. So I'm not going to look at these in detail. Show the toolbar, show the diagram toolbar, use large icons, whatnot. This one here is a bit of an interesting one. Show the tab icons. If you look down here at the notes and the pan and zoom, if I click on that one, suddenly you get a little icon there. I find that quite useful. It just enables you to very quickly, your eyes just sync to where that is. So let's leave that post chats and discussion using the control or return. So we're going to look at collaboration in another video, but that's an interesting thing about the behavior of of the return key there. Let's look at the diagram. So we have users all over the globe, and they use different page setups as by default in different different regions. So people in the US, for example, I think typically use letter. Here in Australia, we use A4, and other regions use different things. But we can set up orientation, margins, all the kind of things that you would set up in your favorite word processor. So that's all there. That will change the length of those. We've got all sorts of options here. Use opaque diagram labels. Very useful to make them opaque, and then they're over connectors. They'll block out the connector from interfering with the script. We've got image memory limits. We've got allow change of creation date. So sometimes you may want to be changing the creation date. Other times you may not want to do that. All sorts of things. Enable connectors to jump. I'm just going to focus on a couple of things, show you the kind of things that you can do. Enable connectors line jumps. Let's do that one, and let's go back in here and have a look and see what if we put a connector between this space and the parking meter. So let's do that, and let's look at what happens. We'll choose an association. Now you can see there's a line jump there, right? You can see that is jumping over those lines. Scott, in my practice, I encourage people to lay out the diagram so you don't have overlapping connectors. Occasionally, you need to. So that's an interesting one. It ensures that you don't think those things are part of the same connector. The one going east-west and the one going north-south. So useful one to keep on. People are used to that. I'm just going to keep going through this because there's so many options. Themes. We can actually create our own theme. So if I change the number of these elements, and you can see applied styles, the font, the color, the line thickness, the gradient, background image, all sorts of things there, hand-drawn mode, whiteboard mode. And if I change those and hit the save key, what you'll see is that I can save that as my own theme. So Enterprise Architect has got diagram themes built into it, and you can choose from a range of things. But I can create my own theme and reuse that. So you can see here, there's a whole range of themes there. And, I had this white soft one chosen, but you can change those and change your own theme. Gradients and background. Let's have a quick look at that. It's an incredibly useful thing. I can set a particular tile on here, so I can select a tile, and that becomes the background for my diagram. So let's do that. Choose that tile there, sort of a canvas-looking one, and you can see now that that's really changed the look of it. Kind of softened it up a bit, like it's a soft fabric kind of look there. Yeah. So back to our preferences window. We were on gradients and themes. We had this tile. Let's clear the tile. All sorts of things to do with gradients. We can tweak the fill color. We can change the hue, percentage, saturation, luminosity, the gradient fill direction for the element, left to right, right to left, up and down. So this is kind of creating like a gradient where it goes from a lighter color to a darker color. I'll let people who are watching the video play with that themselves or experiment with it. Standard colors. Useful thing for all types of things to do with elements and notes and constraints. We can change the color. So we want to change the color of the attribute. You can see at the moment, those attributes are in that gray color.
So if we had customers that are, for example, colorblind, they could change some of the colors to make it provide greater contrast and make it easier for them to
exactly, Scott. Exactly. So I just changed one of those ones there. Let's just make it very obvious by choosing, a color like that. And you can see that that's, changed that on the diagram. I'll go back to my default. So you can always go back to the defaults. Enterprise Architect provides, our UX team, our user experience team, work out the best possible default settings for people. Appearance, all sorts of things. Element fonts, sometimes you may not want to use that standard font. You may want a particular font to emphasize something. There are all sorts of options there. The base zoom level, you can make it large or extra large. Scale views by a particular percentage. Border width, element border width. Shadows on, shadows off, connector shadows, all sorts of things there. Let's move on. Anti-aliased elements, text, that's a great thing to have on because it'll print and look much nicer on a screen as well. Save SVG with opaque background, so we can save vector format there. Let's behavior, diagram behavior, show lifelines, layout uses all relations, auto save, lots and lots of options there, Scott. I'm not going to go into all of them. This highlight here, selection, enable presentation mode, a highlight there. Let's have a very quick look at that one. And you can see that color there. And if I went into my diagram and chose one of my diagram helpers on the layout ribbon, we've got this thing here and we've got presentation. And when I go in there, you can see that's the color for the presentation. And you can change it to something, brighter. You might want to use a magenta or something like that to make it, very obvious. But back to our preferences window. Remember, that's on the start ribbon, the appearance panel, the preferences icon. And, there are, we looked at that behavior there. We looked at the sequence diagrams. They're a particular type of UML diagram. And, there are all sorts of, quite interesting little tips there. We're not going to look at those. Again, that's something that people can play with. Objects. This has got a full range of things here. Warn about spaces in class names. So if you're a developer and working on things, you may want to have this checked because space names in some programming languages or even database languages are a bit of a no-no, right? So you can have that on and warn if you've got them. Now, if you're working in the business or strategic area or something like that, requirements, you want to have spaces. You want it to sound in natural English. So there are a whole lot of...
And is that also related to the fact that Enterprise Architect can automatically generate code? So...
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it wouldn't matter too much if you were just doing what you might do in a standard drawing package. But this tool, Enterprise Architect, as you said, you can generate out to all sorts of things, application schemas and XML schemas and JSON schemas files, C++ code, everything. So,
and sometimes spaces can break all of that. So
exactly, and very hard to find sometimes as well.
Yeah.
I just want to say something, Scott, just to make people understand. There are a lot of options on this page, and let's just give you a little window into, what happens behind the scenes at Spark Systems. The development team and the product owners, the CEO himself, they're confronted with a huge number of requests from different people, different language backgrounds, different geographic backgrounds, different discipline backgrounds. There is such a different ages, different eyesights, all sorts of different things. So a younger person may not care about being able to change font sizes at zoom level. Someone that's a little bit older and with eyesight that isn't quite as good, or they want to be able to change it. So all this brings up kind of accessibility things, which Enterprise Architect has embraced very strongly. But what do you do when you have all these different requests for different things? And the answer is right in front of you. You give people the option to put it the way that they want. Do I want that example we had before with the little icons that are popping up in the tabs for the different windows? Some people will find that distracting. Other people will find it an incredibly useful thing to. So what do you do? And what the team has decided to do is exactly what we're seeing in this preferences window, to provide an option to either display it one way or the other, or this way or that way, or this percentage or that percentage. So all those things are there. I'm just going to very briefly mention source code engineering. You'll see that there's a range of things under here. We're not going to talk about these in detail because they're going to be covered in another video. But for every language that the tool supports and the editors, you can see that there is a whole range of options. So options for C#, for C++, for Java, for Python, for PHP. So we'll cover that later. But the take-home message of this, Scott, is these preferences are incredibly useful. They apply at a personal level, and they can change the way that you work with the application and increase your productivity, which in turn increases the value that you provide to your customers through this model. So, and don't forget, it's not just for you in some ways, because when you change some of the printing options, you may have a contractual obligation to be printing out documentation, and that documentation being presented in a professional format with the right the right images and the right anti-aliasing and things, the right zoom levels. All of that is important to convey and communicate with your audience.
And I assume you have some customers that have very stringent requirements for what fonts they use and what styles they use for all of their reports and documentation to fit in with some organizational guidelines.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Scott. So in another video, we're going to look at some of the preferences, some of the things that apply across the entire repository. And remember, these ones are, for the main part, personal ones.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to thank everyone from the Spark Systems YouTube channel for watching this video. I, as always, recommend people like, comment, and subscribe on the Spark Systems YouTube channel. We love to get your feedback. We love hearing from you, and we certainly love the positive feedback if you're enjoying this video. Stephen, thank you very much for all your time and effort today. It's been great to see how much customization is possible within Enterprise Architect, how comprehensive some of the preferences are. It's really amazing to see how much flexibility the product offers. So thanks for your time, and really appreciate all your help.
Always a pleasure, Scott.